Okay, take it away.
Awesome. Well, first of all, hey, great to meet everybody. And for those that end up watching this later, I'm sorry you couldn't be here, but hey, we've got it recorded for you too, so we don't want you to miss out. So for those of you that don't know me, first of all, my name is Alyssa Miller. I've been in cybersecurity for the better part of almost 2 decades now. Before that, I was a developer. I've been a hacker kind of all my life. Recently I've gotten really involved in trying to figure out how I can help people start careers in cybersecurity or advance their careers in cybersecurity. I'm finishing off a book right now. I swear to God, it is going to actually get done, called the Cybersecurity Career Guide. And it's really focused on helping people get into cybersecurity careers. And I just got done writing the preface for it and, telling a story about why I wrote this book. And it was because I see so much in cybersecurity with people struggling to get started, which flies in the face of all the stories of supposed talent shortages and things like that. But then I see a lot of stories from people who are, trying to advance their careers and maybe making some common mistakes that hold them back. And so that's kind of how I got into writing the book. And that's kind of led to me doing a lot of different research and just working with a lot of people, advocating on their behalf, of course, mentoring some people, things like that. And that leads to why I'm here today, is really to share some of my thoughts with all of you about, avoiding some of those mistakes that hold us back in our jobs and in our careers. So let's dive right in. Some of you, and I might be dating myself here with some of you as well, but some of you probably recognize this face. That's Ralphie from A Christmas Story. And if you're familiar with this, like now ubiquitous Christmas movie that's on like for 24 hours straight every Christmas season, Ralphie wants a very specific BB gun for Christmas. And all the adults in his circle are telling him, look, nope, you can't have a BB gun. You'll shoot your eye out. You're going to shoot your eye out. You're going to shoot your eye out. The mantra throughout the whole movie. So, Ralphie has these dreams of this is what he's going to be. He's going to be this, this sheriff or, whatever. He has all these daydreams about chasing bad guys and fending off robbers and things like that. Really, really, just typical kind of kid stuff, the way that kids tend to sort of think about our Christmas gifts and, so big dreams. But everybody's telling him, no, you can't have that gun because you're going to shoot your eye out. Well, what happens? End of the movie, he ends up shooting his eye out. Now, he doesn't shoot his eye out. The BB hits him either in his glasses or in the cheek. It's kind of unclear in the movie, but all right. So, all that talk, he actually gets the BB gun, but then what they told him comes true. He shoots, it bounces off the target, it comes back and it hits him. Unfortunately, we tend to think this way in our careers oftentimes, and it holds us back. We kind of think about, boy, I don't want to push too far too fast because it won't work out well for me. Or, I don't want to take that big risk because I'm going to get hurt, or I don't want to go after that promotion or try to get that new job or whatever it is. So often we are our own worst enemies when it comes to trying to grow and advance in our careers. So let me tell you my story and how I kind of got here. Because as I told you, I was a hacker all my life. I mean, when I was a little kid, I was the one who took apart all my toys, trying to figure out how they worked. As I got a little bit older, when I turned 12, I got a paper route and I bought my first computer. And with that computer, I conducted my first hacks. I literally, now this, again, dating myself, right? We didn't have the internet yet. So I was going to the library and looking up books on modem communications with UART and asynchronous comms and all the fun stuff. that was going on with modems at the time, because that's how we connected to things. In my case, it was a service, an online community service called Prodigy. And you dialed up direct to them, and you could play games, you could interact with people, but it was a subscription service. And, they would mail you discs all the time, like, here, install our product, sign up, and we'll give you X number of hours for free. So I did that. I think I got like 50 hours of free time with Prodigy, and I wanted more time. And I knew my parents weren't going to pay for it, so I hacked Prodigy. So, that's where I kind of got my start. But it was when I turned 19 that I got my first full-time job. Now, I didn't see, being in tech as a career for me. I had planned to be a doctor. I was enrolled in pre-med and 3 semesters of college level chemistry. And I'm like, peace out. I'm done. No, not doing this. But so now I had to find a new career. And since I already knew programming, as I'm looking through the course catalog, I came across this thing called computer science. I'm like, oh, that's all programming. I can do that. That'll be easy. Well, I did. And while still in school, I got my first job as a programmer working in a financial services company. And this was .com era. So, they were hiring programmers wherever they could find them, right? If you knew anything about programming, it didn't matter if you had a degree, it didn't matter what you were. They wanted you, they needed you. So cool. 19 years old, I got my first salary full-time job. Like, wow. Okay, cool. At 28, so I did programming for 9 years for them. When I was 28 years old, a manager who I'd worked with many times from the security team came over and asked me if I wanted to join her security test team. Now, I didn't know anything about pen testing, and I told her that. And she said, oh, you're smart. You'll figure it out. Well, it worked out. She was right. I joined the pen testing team. Within a year, I was the team lead. And I was in particular very well focused on application security, having been, former developer. Worked out really nicely. Well, by the time I turned 31, I was still with the same company. So, we're pushing a lot of years here. I think I ended up spending 15 years there. But now they had merged. We were a Fortune 200 company. And I was leading as a manager the security testing and vulnerability management program for this entire organization at 31. Okay, well, this sounds all really cool. But, we'll get to some of the issues here in a minute, because you can even hear it as I talk about it now. Like, it's hard for me to recognize how actually really, really cool and crazy that is. But it goes on. 35. So, I told you I spent 15 years at that company. I got out of that company finally at 34, went into consulting. Like, all right, I've seen enough financial services. I want to know what the rest of the world is doing. So I got into consulting, figure I'll see everything. And within the company that I went to work for, used to be called Fishnet Security. Now they're now Optiv. I built an entire team from the ground up. And working with my practice director, we took that practice, which was the least profitable practice in the organization. We turned it around with 400% growth and made it the most profitable in 18 months. That team that I built, which was one of 3 teams in that practice, was the most profitable team in that practice. I did that. I worked with a bunch of other people. I had my director's help and blah, but wow, okay. 37, I go to a different consulting company. Now I'm the head of an entire practice on my own. Very cool. It was their program services practice. So now I'm sitting down with CEOs and other executives, high level management, helping them build application security programs. At 37, I'm a manager, but I'm in board presentations. I'm sitting down with these leaders of gigantic corporations and international agencies. Like, wow, okay. But, it was just dumb luck. I just sort of, fell into it, right? And then things took a turn. So all of this serendipitous stuff that kind of just sort of happened to me. And then at 41, I'm working in consulting still, and something really damaging happened. I got passed over for a promotion. I was working with a new organization that I had just joined 8 months prior when my director left. And when he left, he recommended not only to the hiring vice president, but also to the executive committee of the company that I should be his replacement. And we went through the interview process and whatever, and I got passed over. And I won't go into the details, but there's all sorts of problematic stuff that happened there. And I do believe there was discrimination involved, but that's not what this is about. But it impacted my psyche. So at 41, with all this background, I changed direction completely. And I decided, all right, you know what? I'm tired of trying to climb the management ladder. I'm still got a manager title. I don't seem to get past that. Forget it. I'm focusing on something else entirely. And I went to work for a startup because I expected to be traveling internationally for them. I was going to do a lot of public speaking. Well, the public speaking part worked out, but the travel sure didn't, because right about that time, COVID hit. So much for all that international travel. And so now I'm sitting here in an individual contributor role. I had given up my dreams of accelerating in management. And at the same time, that thing that was going to replace it, that travel, just didn't happen. Then something amazing happened. And it's amazing to me because at this point, I still don't understand why they felt I was worth it. But an executive search firm reached out to me. And they said, hey, this one of the big 3 social media companies, I can't say which, I'm signed an NDA, but was looking to hire a new security executive. And they wanted me in the search. Now, it ended up not going anywhere. That company never actually ended up creating the position they thought they were going to create. Didn't happen. But it gave me confidence. It gave me confidence that when something came up next, I shot my shot. And I became the Business Information Security Officer for S&P Global Ratings. Now, what the heck is a Business Information Security Officer? Alyssa, what is this BSO thing? Geez. Business Information Security Officers, basically, I am the CISO for our particular business division. Now they differentiate Business Information Security Officer from Chief Information Security Officer because I don't report to the CISO, I report to the business line. But I am managing the cybersecurity strategy, the entire cybersecurity program for a multi-billion-dollar a year credit rating agency. That all happened because someone in my network worked at this organization, S&P Global, and happened to share that this was an open position. And I took a risk. I went for it. I got it. And I've been super happy ever since. All those goals I had that I was trying to get to, I couldn't get to. I got stuck at that manager level. I just couldn't break past. Now I'm a business executive. I'm reporting to boards on a regular basis. I'm having meetings with, all of the chief executives across our entire organization on a regular basis. I'm driving this strategy. I'm the one my division turns to when things like Log4j happen. And that's not to brag, but that's to say, holy crap, I made it. Somehow through all of that, I made it. But what you hear in all of that, and I hear myself when I do it, are all those things, those excuses I make. Oh, it was accident, Oh, that person came to me and, she took a chance on me. It wasn't anything I did. That's what we do to ourselves. And it makes us afraid to chase something like this. It makes us afraid to go for that next big thing because we just tell ourselves we're not worth it. So more on that in a minute. But let's start talking first about that pandemic thing. So, I know I've got a multi-gender audience here, but let's be real. There are a lot of studies out there right now talking about how women were disproportionately affected in the workplace by the pandemic. And there's reasons for that. And it's something that we have to recognize. Okay, it just is. This isn't a diversity and inclusion talk, but it's something we have to recognize. And for the women out there, this is something you want to recognize in yourself too, because we're a part of the problem. So what's derailing women in their careers in particular? Well, first of all, we're in 2022, and yet still there's the predominant attitude that for women, their careers come second. Child rearing, home life, all of that is always, always, always attributed to the women first. And it's frustrating. And you look at how many programs get built because we think this way. Think about, people talk about how do you attract more women to your company? What do they start talking about? They talk about, well, you got to have this parental leave because that'll bring women in. Shouldn't that bring in everybody? Shouldn't men want parental leave too? And it's that sort of thing. Women ultimately are still the ones expected to be at home to take care of the kids. If someone's got to be there, it's got to be the woman more often than not. And that's what we saw during the pandemic. If you don't believe me, take a look at the article. It's the reality. And it's happened over and over again. Now, what also holds women back is this value that organizations place on overwork. And so when work is secondary to the woman already, because we're expected to put family life before career, which isn't necessarily wrong, don't get me wrong, but because that's the expectation put on us, we feel like we have to work harder to justify our position in that company and to justify our loyalty to that company and to show that we're serious enough about our career. And so there's a lot of overwork that happens with women trying to prove themselves. Third, I mentioned before that idea of different programs that are aimed at women in particular to try to attract women, to try to make the workplace more comfortable. They're well-meaning programs, but they create these artificial off-ramps that allow women to kind of make that excuse to leave the workforce and not come back. Oh, I'm going to take a leave of absence to raise my kids for the first 3 months. And then after 3 months, you just sort of don't ever come back, which is fine if you're happy doing that. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing necessarily, but it can be, because it makes it too easy for us to give up what we were chasing to do what we think society expects of us. And then finally, and this is so crucial, whether you're a woman, whether you're Black, whether you're Hispanic, whether you're LGBT, the fact of the matter is, if you're in an underrepresented group in tech, you're underrepresented. You don't have those role models necessarily in high-level positions that you can look up to and say, oh yeah, I actually belong up there. Because you don't see it. You go to some company's website, you look at their executive team pictures and you see, 15 white men, and then there's one woman there, probably a white woman, who works most likely in HR or marketing. I mean, tell me you haven't seen it. I have. All the time. Not every company, of course. There's some companies that are great. There's some companies that have a wonderful mix. But this happens, and it's still the majority of the time. So for women in particular, it can be really tough to feel like you even belong at those levels that you're seeking to achieve. And that holds us back. That's problematic. So again, that last one in particular, any underrepresented group, that's going to apply to you. And it's something that you have to overcome, because otherwise what it does is it helps create this wonderful thing that I think all of us deal with, if we're being real. That's that idea of imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is this thing that just, it has a lot of different descriptions. It's so hard to put our finger on, but at the end of the day, we just don't feel like we belong. We don't feel like we deserve the success we've got. We don't feel like we've accomplished things. And you heard me go through it as I was telling you my whole life story of my entire career, right? How many times? Oh, well, it was an accident. I sort of fell into that. Or, oh, I had help from this person of that person or whatever. Of course I did. That's how we all get here. we look at this, and one of the places imposter syndrome comes from is just this idea of our domain of knowledge. So we know there's all of this stuff to know about cybersecurity. And when we look at other people, we start to get the impression that, wow, all these experienced people know all this stuff, and I only know this little bit. And that makes us feel like we don't belong. It holds us back. We don't feel like we're ready for that next big job, that next, that next big opportunity. Because we look at it and we say, oh my gosh, all those people that I see that I look up to or I admire in some way, they know so much more than I'll ever know. But the reality is this is what's really going on. They don't know more than we do. Everybody has their own little bit, but we see all of those other people and we attribute their individual knowledge as like this big collective knowledge that they all possess. But that's not reality. The reality is we know things that they don't know. They know things we don't know. And none of us is ever going to know it all. There is so much to know and understand in cybersecurity. It's never going to be something that we're all going to have this big cloud of knowledge that's all the domains of cybersecurity. It's just never going to happen. It's not realistic. So understanding where those overlaps are, understanding how different people, their knowledge may overlap. They may talk about a lot of the same topics, but at the same time, they all have their own interests and their own focus. And they all know really specialized things about different parts of this industry. And remembering that. And then accepting that every one of them who got that knowledge, they had help. They had lucky breaks. They got there on the shoulders of others. The reality is it's not, your accomplishments aren't so much about, whether or not you got a lucky break. It's what did you do with that lucky break? Did you take the risk? Did you excel? I joined that security test team. I didn't know anything about pen testing. Now she showed me a little, confidence in me. That helped. That motivated me. But I took me 3 days to decide whether or not to accept that job. And when I did, I was nervous as all get out, but it was a risk I was going to take. And you know what? It worked out. I look back on it, it feels like a dumb accident, but it worked out. I look back on how I got into tech as a programmer. Oh my God, total accident. I didn't like chemistry, so I decided not to go into pre-med. So I found this other thing, but it turns out it connected really well with what I had been doing. And so I was able to make that leap. I was able to pivot. That was on me. I need to look at that. That was pretty impressive. And that's how we need to start to understand our accomplishments. Because it's when we understand that we all stand together. We all raise each other up. You've heard these cliches before. That's the reality. What you do with your individual lucky breaks, what you do with your individual opportunities, when you are willing to take risks, that is the measure of your success. And that's what makes it valuable. Not the fact that you did something, but the fact that you actually tried. You took advantage of that opportunity, made the most of it. So what else holds us back? Imposter syndrome is a big one, but it's not the only thing. Stop me if you've heard this one before. Job descriptions. They suck. They're garbage. I did research on this 2 years ago, and it's ridiculous how bad these things are. This is one for an information security architect. This thing goes on for 3 pages. Look, you can't even read this stuff that I screenshotted. I don't know why I'm so nice to them, and I'm actually redacting out the name of the organization that wrote this monstrosity. But this is the reality. The industry throws out these insane job descriptions. There is no unicorn on the job market who's going to match this crap. Look how specific all this is. I know you can't even read it. I'm sitting here like straining to read some of this. But the number of individual technologies they're talking about. You got to know HIPAA and high tech and PCI. First of all, HIPAA high tech, this is a grocery store chain. Why in the heck do I need to know about HIPAA and high tech? Okay, maybe they have pharmacies. So then, like, couldn't I just learn it? But all right, let's see. Applications, databases, operating systems, hypervisors, IP networks, storage networks, backup network. I could go on. This would take me 20 minutes just to read this to you. So when we look at these job descriptions, what do? The tendency is to sit there and think, I got to check all these boxes. And if I don't check enough of those boxes, I'm not qualified for that job. Now there's studies out there again, and I'll go back to the women versus men thing a little bit. Men tend to be less impacted by that. Men are more likely to apply whether or not they fully match those. Everyone else, we tend to hold back. We tend to think we got to match like 60, 70, 80% of that. Throw that out the window. Except right now, these job descriptions are awful. You see all that text in the paragraph? Focus on that instead. Read, what is the job actually about? Does it sound like something you think you can do? Does it sound like something, yeah, maybe it's a stretch for you, but you can learn how to do it? Apply. I'm going to say that unequivocally. Apply. It does not hurt to apply. Does not hurt to interview. Now we're going to talk a little bit about how to deal with the rejection side of interviewing, right? Because there's that too. But apply. If you feel like it's something you can do and you can learn to do, go after it. The worst they can tell you is no. They're not going to laugh at you. They're not going to point fingers. They're not going to publish your name and say, look at this person who applied. Oh my God, they weren't qualified at all. No, they're not going to do any of that. They'll just say, hey, we don't think you're qualified. Or, hey, you're just not a good fit. They might be right. They might be wrong. So what? Go for it. So get over the fact that job descriptions are awful. I mean, you've probably seen other ones. There's another one I have from my research. It was a cybersecurity intern that they wanted to have 3 years of cybersecurity experience. Huh? Or there's the fact that like 91% of job descriptions for entry-level roles ask you to have a CISSP. Huh? I gotta have 5 years of experience to get a CISSP. What are you talking about? All of these things, they turn into job descriptions that are awful. So forget about all that. Focus on, does this sound like a job I can do? Does this sound like a job that it's going to challenge me to learn some things? I'm going to have to really grow and really work hard. Isn't that what we all want from a job anyway? You don't want to walk into a job that you're like instantly know you're going to crush. You want to walk into a job that's going to let you learn new things and be a challenge and be something new and exciting for you. So apply. Then let's talk about knowing your worth. This is something that I cannot stress enough. Research what that job is worth. There is a question that gets asked, thankfully to lesser and less degree than ever before, but it's a question that I will never answer. And if I'm forced to answer it by, the application system, either I'm not applying or I will lie. And that is, what's your current salary? If anyone ever asks you that in an interview, don't ever answer that question. Because that piece of information is 100% irrelevant. What you're making today has absolutely no bearing on a potential opportunity. Well, how do they know what they're going to pay me? You get paid for the job you do. You don't get paid based on what you were getting paid in the past. That is a pattern of behavior by employers to try to save money, to be blunt. If they want to know if your salary demands are a match for the job, which we do want to know that, we want to identify that early. Both parties are far happier if we can figure it out right away that this isn't a fit because your salaries don't match up. You need to talk about what you expect to be making in that job. And to know that means you have to understand what the job is and what that job should pay. I'm going to talk about a couple strategies later on, but you need to know your worth. Make sure that you focus on getting paid for the job you're going to do, not the job you've been doing. So if they ask you that question, how do you not answer that question? Someone says to you, hey, what is your present salary? Well, for this position, I would like to be making X. Or you can turn it around and say, what is your range for this position? Some states have now made it illegal for companies to ask you what your current pay is. Some are even starting to require that job descriptions list a pay range. I'm happy to say that my organization, despite not having that requirement, does it anyway. All of our job descriptions, I have 2 out there right now that list the range. Salary range should not be a secret. And if they're reluctant to share with you what the range is, consider that a red flag. Remember, the interview process is as much you interviewing them as it is them interviewing you. You're trying to figure out if that's an organization you want to work for. And if that's an organization that won't be open and honest with you about what the pay potential is for that job that you're going to be walking into day one, that's not a job you want to work for necessarily. You may not want to be working for that company. So take that into consideration. Now, if they do tell you the range, which they should, if you ask and they give you the range, be aware you don't want to just then automatically be asking for the top of the range, unless that's really what you feel you're worth. But there is problems with being paid at the top of the range for a particular job. First of all, you're probably going to be less attractive to them because they see that, and it's not even a money saving thing. It's just, once I get a person in, if they're at the top of the range for their salary or for that job, I can't give them raises because that's the salary range. Or to give them a raise, I've got to get really super special dispensation to go beyond the max, right? So don't get yourself underpaid because you're trying to avoid being at the top of the range. It might just not be a good fit for you then from a salary perspective. But what I'm saying is, don't just say, oh, well, I can make that, so that, of course, is what I want to make. Be realistic. And again, I'll talk more in a little while about how you can go about researching salaries and what you should be making. But like I said, the key thing here is don't ever tell them what you make now, and understand that that's irrelevant. And if they push you hard on that, again, that's probably not an organization you want to be working for. Let's talk about mentoring for a minute. Mentoring is an interesting animal to me. Because you see, I did a lot of research, and one of the things I looked at was mentoring. And the impact of mentoring on job searches is 0, which I know sounds ridiculous. But the reality is there was no correlation whatsoever between having a mentor and finding a job faster. Now, what I'm not saying, so don't put words in my mouth, I'm not saying that mentors aren't worthwhile. Mentors are exceptionally important. But we need to look at mentors for what they should be. That mentorship should be someone who helps you plan your career, or it might be someone who you can simply, on a more casual basis, bounce things off of. If you've been met with a certain situation you don't know how to handle, or you want advice, or you want just an outside perspective, mentors should be there to do that for you. Mentors are there to share their story with you so that you can understand the various perspectives on how people got where they are. And a mentor should be there to help you build your network. So that's the part where they can have some impact on your job search, is if they can connect you to some people. And that's good. So understand when you build a mentoring relationship that that's what you're really looking to get out of it. You know, I think people expect mentors sometimes to be like very, training focused. And I think that misses the value altogether. I'll be honest with you. The best mentors I've had throughout my life, throughout my entire career, are those that have kind of happened casually or, sort of just organically. They just happened to be someone who I felt comfortable talking with. And we started talking more and more. In a couple cases, I did specifically ask them if they could serve as a mentor to me, and those worked out well. And a lot of times we never really even formalized it that way. So keep that in mind. It doesn't necessarily have to be, that you set up some really structured mentoring program with somebody. If that works for you, great. But remember what they're there for. They're there to help you grow. They're there to help you see, how you can progress, to give you ideas and to help you deal with the things you're going to encounter. But don't expect that because you got a mentor, it's going to make it easier to find a job necessarily. Again, with that caveat, of course, of, where they are helping you connect with their network. So make sure you get to know your mentor, get to know them personally, know what their career journey was, understand it, and see how that can help, take the bits of that you can use and leverage that for yourself. Just don't over expect. Don't, set your expectations properly for what mentoring will mean for you. For those of us from underrepresented groups, it's also great to have a mentor that just gives you some representation, right? Like you can see somebody else there who looks or, whatever, same gender, same race, same sexuality, whatever it is, somebody else who matches up with that thing that makes you feel like, forgive the phrase, but makes you feel like an other, right? And now you can see, oh, I actually do belong, even though I don't see a lot of people who look like me, who match that demographic. There are some of them out there, and look, one of them is my mentor. That's important. So I encourage it. Again, mentorship is still important. Just setting expectations. All right. Now, I talked before about the whole interview process and denials, right? Denials are tough. The fact of the matter is I don't care who you are. You get that email, you get that phone call, it says, oh, we've decided to go a different direction, or we got a lot of candidates, and all the half of those things read like college application denials. Oh, we got an exceptional number of applicants this year, so yeah, well, whatever. Stop soft coding it. You're telling me no. That's what matters. And the reality is, when we get those, it hurts, right? It feels personal to us. We feel like we weren't good enough. Start to think about that a little different. And I say this as somebody with 12 years of hiring manager experience. I've hired nothing short of 50 different people. And I can tell you, not once, okay, I take that back. One time, it was a very personal thing where this person just was not, it wasn't good. But it's not personal. I, as a hiring manager, I'm looking for that person that I think is the right fit. And what I, as a job candidate, think is the right fit might be a very different set of criteria than that hiring manager. And that's okay. Remember, I said before, you're interviewing the company as much as they're interviewing you. You should be trying to figure out, hey, you know what? Do I fit here? Is this a company I want to work for? Do I feel like I can be successful in this role? Or did the job description mislead me? And now that I'm finding out what this is all about, I don't want it. That's what we're doing. That's the whole concept of the interview process. And I'll tell you what, as a manager, it's every bit as daunting, because I don't want to screw it up either. I want to pick the right person, but you know what? I'm going to make mistakes. Have I made mistakes as a hiring manager and hired the wrong person who, later on, I wish I'd gone a different direction? Yeah. I've hired people who just didn't work out because somehow between us talking, we failed to see the issues. We failed to see how they weren't going to fit. It happens. So if you get it in the interview process, well, hey, you found out about it sooner. They're not saying you're not worthwhile. They're not saying you're not even qualified for that job. It just might be that they found someone who lined up a little bit more to the specific things that were important to them, and that you just weren't the best fit. That's okay. So what can you do with this? Well, first of all, some organizations feel free to ask when you get that denial, send an email back, say, hey, can you tell me what I could work on or what wasn't a good fit? How could I have been a better fit for that job? Most organizations will send you something. Some won't. There are a few that are very adamant. It's part of their policy. They will not tell anybody why they didn't get hired. But most of them will. And that's great information. Take what you can use. Anything that seems insane, throw it away. If it's not something you can leverage to your advantage to grow on, just toss it out. That's fine. Whatever. If they were wrong about how they perceived you and they say something in there, it's like, that's just not right. Forget about it. Throw it away. It's their loss. They missed out. They should have done a better job interviewing you. But use that to your advantage. Also, remember, just the act of interviewing alone, you can learn a whole lot because you're going to find out a lot about an organization and how they function and how they look at things that could be very different than someone else. You may interview for a pen tester job in one company that is completely different than how it's implemented in another company. And seeing those differences and understanding how different corporations look at that differently can be super important, super valuable to you. So approach each interview as, even if you feel like you bombed it, you could still learn something from it. Finally, if you feel like you bombed an interview, calm down. You probably didn't. Technical interviews are infamous for this. They're some of the hardest. Remember when I told you I left that organization? I went and I joined this startup, and it was an individual contributor role. I went in there and they were interviewing me hardcore about application security topics. And I know application security. Like, I've been in AppSec for a lot of years. They asked me a couple questions I didn't know. And I thought I did awful. Like, they asked me about prototype pollution. And I'm like, I have no idea what that is. I'm like, based on the name, I can sort of figure it out. Like, I know what a prototype is, and pollution sounds like you're doing something to mess with the prototype. So, okay, I'm assuming it's related to that. But I admitted I didn't know it. I didn't try to lie. I didn't try to make up some insane answer. I admitted I didn't know it. I offered them what seemed like a plausible explanation based on the knowledge I did have. So I showed them how I think about things. And you know what? I left that feeling like I bombed it. I missed these big questions. How did I not know these things? Oh my God, I'm totally not qualified for this job. A week later, I get a job offer from them. After I joined, I find out from that person that I interviewed with, he was one of the ones who was pushing the hardest for them to hire me. He thought I did great in the interview. So if you feel like you bombed an interview, maybe you did, but maybe you didn't. A lot of times an interview, it doesn't feel like it went so well. Actually went great. Questions aren't always about getting the right answer. It's about figuring out, how does that person think, and how do they, where are they set in their mindset? So keep that in mind as well. All right. So you went through all this. You did it great. You got it. And woohoo! Job offer. Yes. And then you open it. Oh no, it's not enough. It's not what I wanted. Every job offer is negotiable. Everyone. No company is going to pull back a job offer because you come back and say, you know what? This isn't really where I was hoping to be. I would like an extra $5, $10, $15, $20,000 a year, whatever the number is. You know what? I like the salary, but hey, you know what? You only gave me 2 weeks of vacation. I'm going to need 3. You can negotiate these things. You can ask for these things. Now, if you come back and you tell them, and this is, remember I told you there was one person who just really wasn't like, yeah. There was one other person who I gave a job offer to, who didn't like the job offer. Fine. As a hiring manager, I'm expecting that they're going to negotiate. Well, this person sent me a laundry list of everything that was wrong with the job offer. I mean, top to bottom, like almost, every sentence. Okay, you do that, then it's like, yeah, we're just not a good fit. Because I'm not, there's nothing I can negotiate there, right? You've now made, there's so much that I just don't have to work with anymore. But no, if the salary is off, it's not enough, look at other options. Now be aware, there are things that you cannot negotiate, right? If you find out that their insurance coverage isn't what you hoped it would be, they're not going to get new insurance coverage for you. That stuff gets set once a year, but think creatively. Could they give you a signing bonus that would maybe make up for where you're going to have to pay more to go to the doctor or something? I don't know. Vacation. Maybe they give you more vacation time. Okay, they can't help you with, the insurance being great, but hey, we can do that. Or, we don't have childcare benefits, but we can give you more time off. Or maybe we can work, do a hybrid work from home thing, whatever it is. Don't be afraid to ask. I know so many people who are afraid to negotiate because they're worried that they'll lose the job offer if they ask for more money. They're not going to pull it back. And if they do, if they were to rescind a job offer because you dared ask for more money than they put on the offer, again, consider, is that really the company you wanted to be working for anyway? Probably not. So the last thing, let's talk about, how do you know what you're worth? Remember we talked about this before? So this is important when we get to the negotiation. What salary should you have? So one thing that's been effective, and you see more and more, like LinkedIn, Glassdoor, Indeed, all of these are listing their estimates of a job salary range for a particular title. That's great. Okay, those are good, but they're also wildly inaccurate sometimes. If you're going to leverage that, Glassdoor at least will let you search within a company for a specific job title. Now, when I came into this job as a BSO, I negotiated my salary. They came in low. I told them where I wanted to be. They still came in low. And you know what? I had gone to Glassdoor. I had found the salary for that job title. And you know what? That salary range it gave me was actually spot on. It was dead on. It was absolutely to the dollar exactly what their range was. And now in that case, it would probably, some of that was because it probably was pulling it from their job postings that listed it. But so it was there, right? The job posting I saw was on LinkedIn. It actually didn't have the range in it for whatever reason, but I found out what the range was. And so I knew what I was worth. I knew what I should be getting paid for that job at that company. And when you do that on Glassdoor, it's more accurate. But there's an even better way. You've probably got a social media presence somewhere. LinkedIn is great for this, especially if you've kind of cultivated a bit of a network there. Find people who have the job title that you're looking at and ask them. Now, especially if you don't know them, they might not be willing to share what they make, but just ask them, what do you think I should be making for this job? What should somebody in this position be making? Because now it disarms them a bit, right? Because now they can give you a little bit of a range. It might be based on their own knowledge. You're not asking them for personal information. You're just asking them for their opinion. But leverage that. You can do it on Twitter. You can do it on, whatever, Instagram for all I care. If you can find out what somebody's title is through Instagram, great, probably less likely. That's why LinkedIn works really good for that, because everybody loves to list their current title out there. So find somebody who's got that title. Check it out. Those are all good ways. That is one of the best ways, quite honestly, to figure out what you should be making. Nothing else, crowdsource it. Just throw it out there. I mean, I've seen people do that on Twitter. Hey, I'm looking at this job. This is the title. What do you think I should be making? I respond to those anytime I can. Because we still live in a society where salary is a really, quiet thing we don't talk about much. So do what you can. Do as much as you can. Find out what that salary should be. Heck, worst case scenario, if you've got someone in your network who's an HR or recruiter, ask them, even if they don't have the title, if they got a recruiter title. A lot of those HR people have access to salary surveys. They might even be willing to look it up for you. It's good to have friends in HR, I'll tell you that. So think about that too. So last thing I'm going to say, and I know I've gone longer than the 45 minutes. Sorry, Rob. I promised I lied. If you're feeling low, if you're feeling that imposter syndrome kick in, this is a tweet that I put out there some time ago now. I don't even remember when this is from. But you know what? I was feeling just like I didn't belong. I was feeling like I wasn't worth anything. And literally, I kid you not, a half hour after I posted that tweet, this showed up in the mail. It was a box of 20 thank you cards because I did an event like this for an organization. What can I even read it? From Dakota State University, where they do outreach to teen girls to try to bring them into STEM and into security in particular. And in this case, it is security because it's called cyber security. Sorry, I'm looking at the screen because it's really tiny. 20 thank you notes from the girls that were in that program that I addressed, talking about cybersecurity topics. And we had an open question answer. And suddenly I felt like a queen. I felt like a superhero. The point of this is, as you help others, it raises you up. Where you have those opportunities to advocate on behalf of others, it'll help raise you up. When I see people who I worked with early in their careers getting big time jobs that they only dreamed of, the way that makes me feel, I'm so happy for them that it makes me feel like just on a cloud. So the more that you can help others as well. Now, don't overcommit yourself. Do what you can do. Again, you're still number one. You still have to be the top priority. But when you can, when you have those opportunities, understand that by raising others, you help raise yourself. I promise you it works every time. So with that, I am going to wrap up. I swear to God, Rob. Last thing, I'll just leave you this quote from Barack Obama. I love this quote. Real test is not whether you avoid this failure, because you won't. It's whether you let it harden or shame you into inaction or you learn from it. So you go for that next big job. You shoot your shot. If it doesn't work out, do you pretend like you just shot your eye out, or did you learn from it? And do you take that and do you let it propel you higher? It really is about how you react to these situations that determines, where you go in your career. So take that to heart. Hopefully I gave you some practical knowledge that you can leverage. If there's other things I can do to help, please feel free to reach out. Add me on Twitter, LinkedIn. We can connect. Twitter by far is the easiest way to get in touch with me. My website's there, but don't hesitate to reach out. I'm always happy to help people however I can. If even it's nothing more than redirecting you to someone else who I know can help you better than I can. I'll help you build your network if I can. Hey, we're all in this together. So let me know. Finally, big thank you to all of you. I really enjoyed it. I went longer than I should have. I got really into it. I get really passionate about it today. It's important stuff. So I hope that, again, you got something you can use, hopefully something you can take with you tomorrow and put into a job search if you're looking. Put it into your current career. If you're in a job role now, maybe there's some things in here you can leverage for that. But go after it. You're not going to shoot your eye out. Shoot your shot. Go for the thing you want. Go get it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.